billionaire's son given 3 months to live what the maid did at midnight haunts his father forever. In the sprawling mansion atop the hill, where wealth dripped from every crystal chandelier and echoed in the hollow halls, a pall hung low. The eeriness of the place matched the anguished moans of its master, Charles Jansen, the billionaire whose heart now lay shattered. Just days ago, doctors had pulled no punches, revealing the devastating news: his only son, Adam, had mere months left to live. The words etched themselves into the very walls of that mansion, a mystery woven tightly around the family's fate. Strange occurrences punctuated the silence of each night. Charles often caught glimpses of shadows flitting past the opulent stained-glass windows, whispers curling around the edges, often too soft to catch but echoing with urgency. The staff seemed on edge, they exchanged wary glances, and hushed conversations paused the moment he entered. No one would dare share what they knew or what they thought they knew, and in that tense atmosphere, the silence screamed louder than any shout. One night, as the clock struck 12, a sudden thud jolted Charles awake. Heart racing, he crept from his lavish room, the rich dark wood floors cold beneath his bare feet. He rounded the corner, taking a sharp breath when he spotted her, the maid, Clara. She was draped in shadows, holding something in her trembling hands that glimmered dully under the moonlight. Panic surged through him as she whispered an incantation, the words foreign and chilling, sending shivers through the air between them. "What are you doing?" he finally croaked, his voice breaking through the surreal tension. Clara started, and the item fell to the floor, clattering loudly. The sound reverberated through the halls, drawing attention. She turned her wide, terrified eyes toward him, the fear palpable. "You must leave, Mr. Jansen. You don't understand." But just as she was about to spill the secret, the air thickened, and a wave of unnatural chill swept through the room. Charles felt a clammy hand clasp around his throat. Fear gripped him like a vice. He couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. The shadows danced and twisted as if alive, dragging him into their depths. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." As the weight of the shadows lifted, Charles gasped, clutching his chest, the world spinning around him. Clara was gone, vanished into nothingness. Left behind was just the glimmering object that had fallen, a weathered amulet, its surface intricately carved with symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. What had she planned, and why was it so vital? As he reached toward it, the door creaked open, revealing a figure standing in the darkness, one that he never expected to see again. What would he discover about the mystifying fate that entwined them all? The figure stepped forward, and Charles's breath caught in his throat. It was Isabel, his estranged wife. Her presence was like a thunderclap in the suffocating quiet, a raw jolt that sent memories racing through him like a film playing in fast forward. The wounds of their separation ached anew, sharper than ever. "Isabel?" he managed to whisper, disbelief clawing at him. What was she doing here? The last time he had seen her was when she turned her back on their marriage, leaving him and Adam to face the wreckage. "Charles," she faltered, her voice trembling as she glanced nervously around the dark hallway. "I came the moment I heard." "Hear what?" he snapped, frustration tightening around his gut like a vice. "What do you know about Adam?" Isabel's eyes glimmered with unshed tears, a combination of pain and urgency swirling in her expression. "It's worse than you think. I felt it, the darkness in this house. Clara, she knew something. A last chance." "A last chance?" Charles echoed, eyes narrowing. "What kind of chance?" She bit her lip, then hurled the words at him, raw and desperate. "The amulet. You mustn't touch it, Charles. It's not what you think. It's a conduit, a dangerous one. He picked it up, feeling the cool metal warm against his palm, the symbol starting to glow softly. What do you mean dangerous? What do you know about this? Tears streamed down Isabel's cheeks as she waved her hands, desperate to dissuade his probing curiosity. It's used for dark rituals. Clara, she was trying to summon something, to bargain for Adam's life. Laughter erupted from the shadows, echoing eerily. The laughter belonged to no one in sight, but its chilling sound enveloped them, wrapping them in dread. Stop! Charles yelled into the empty air, his voice resonating off the ornate walls. The shadows thickened, seemingly drawn to the amulet in his hand, reaching out like ghostly fingers. Charles, put it down. You're inviting disaster. Isabel shouted, her voice strained. We have to leave. The commotion stirred the household, muffled whispers crept towards them, soon followed by a figure charging down the hallway. Paul, the head of the staff. His face was pale, eyes wide as they swept over the scene before him. What in heaven's name is happening? He gasped, clutching a silver cross that hung from his neck as if it alone could ward off the encroaching darkness. Clara. She was here. Charles shouted, the panic in his voice palpable. And this amulet? Give it to me. Paul shouted, voice now commanding. It's too late. Darkness loves these things. They thrive on fear and desperation. But Charles hesitated. Is this what Clara had been trying to stop? Was this amulet really the key to Adam's fate, or a doorway to something even worse? As the tension coiled tighter, the walls around them seemed to groan, playing into their fears. Shadows whispered secrets that pricked at the edges of consciousness, warning him and beckoning him closer at the same time. Charles abruptly felt the choice crushing him: save his son or risk everything with this cursed artifact in his hand. What if I could save Adam? He shouted over the cacophony of the shadows. What if this could actually help him? No! Isabel cried, eyes flaring with terror. You don't know what you'd unleash. But the amulet pulsated, demanding his decision, daring him to delve deeper into the unknown. As Charles held it, a searing pain shot through his chest, filling him with adrenaline and confusion. The shadows thickened, whispering promises that curled around him like smoke. All he could hear was that throbbing pulse, and as he prepared to make the fateful choice, the darkness seemed to beckon, wrapping him in its embrace. What would it cost him to delve into this mystery? And what was waiting in the shadows, plotting its next move? The air crackled, and in that moment, everything felt poised on a fragile precipice, ready to plunge into chaos. The shadows danced like ghosts around Charles, wrapping him in an almost tangible grip. With the amulet pulsating in his hand, he could feel the weight of generations pressing down on him. Isabel's frantic voice broke through his thoughts again. Charles, listen to me. Her urgency felt like a lifeline, but the allure of the amulet was intoxicating. If Clara was trying to summon something beyond our understanding, you could unleash horrors we can't even imagine. Paul stepped closer, his face taut with fear. You don't know what kind of entity she wanted to invoke. These relics draw power from souls. His eyes darted from the amulet to Charles and back. It could be a demon or something worse. We need to destroy it. Destroy it? Charles snapped, heart racing. And do what? Leave Adam's fate in the hands of chance? But what if you end up trading your son for something far worse? Isabel cried, desperate. We have to think carefully about what we're dealing with. Just as the palpable tension peaked, Louis, the house guard, arrived, his breaths heavy. What is going on here? His voice, authoritative but laced with confusion, sliced through the tension. He caught sight of the amulet, eyes widening in recognition. Put that down. You have no idea who or what it can attract. Charles felt the pressure swell and fall in tides, swirling emotions pitching him between fear and desperation. What if it's the key to saving my son? What if it leads us to Clara? He demanded, voice shaking. No. Isabel shouted, eyes blazing. You could lose everything. You're risking more than just your life, you're risking Adam's soul. A sudden chill seeped into the air, thick with an energy that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The shadows, the whispers, they grew louder, more insistent, twisting around him like a storm. Charles, lay it down, Paul urged, the fire in his eyes flickering with concern. Please. This can end in tragedy. Yet the amulet felt alive in his hand, a heartbeat against his skin. The whispers turned to screams, warning him of impending doom, yet they beckoned with promises of power and redemption. Make your choice. They murmured, slithering into Charles's mind. He felt the pulse of the amulet align with his heartbeat, a dark symbiosis he couldn't resist. Charles. Isabel grabbed him by the shoulders, eyes radiating desperation. Think of Adam. He needs you clear-headed, not consumed by this madness. But a dark flare of defiance surged through him. This was about more than just Adam. This was his son, fighting for life against a relentless darkness. What if he had the opportunity to change the course? The air shifted abruptly, tension coiling tightly within the room. With one firm command from the unseen shadows, a gust of wind blew through the hallway, rattling the walls, throwing portraits askew. Choose. The voices echoed, reverberating within him. Just as he was about to take a step forward, a crash jolted through the house, as if the very foundation were protesting his decision. The candlelight flickered wildly, casting ominous shapes across the walls. What was that? Louis's face drained of color, shifting his gaze to the shadows at the end of the hallway. In that moment, the lights flickered out, plunging them into darkness. Panic set in, and the shadows merged into one, creating a void where even the air seemed to shudder. Charles's chest tightened, each beat an echo of despair. What's happening? He shouted above the silence. Isabel's terrified whisper reached him, we must leave now. But before they could move, a piercing scream shattered the silence from upstairs. Adam. As they turned towards the sound, dread surged through Charles, mixing with the weight of the choice he hadn't yet made. Was he too late? Did the darkness already claim his son's fate? Rushing towards the staircase, they were met with a force that sent them stumbling. The shadows laughed again, this time it felt cruel, mocking their desperation. What had he awakened? And what would he face at the top of those stairs? The descent into chaos had begun, and he could only pray it wouldn't swallow them whole. Charles pushed through the doorway, heart pounding like a war drum in his chest as darkness enveloped him. The shadows stretched and twisted, swirling around his feet like serpents eager for their next victim. Each step up the creaking stairs was heavy with dread, the alley of memories tearing through his mind, the laughter of his son, the spark in Adam's eyes. Adam! He called out, voice cracking through the silence. We're coming! Isabel yelled back, her fear palpable. She clutched Paul's arm, her knuckles white. We can't waste time. The air grew thicker, almost suffocating as they ascended, pressing against Charles's chest like a lead weight. There was no mistaking the hints of desperation laced in Adam's shrieks. Each echo floated back to them, twisted as if the house itself were mocking their pursuit. What if he's already? Paul started, but Louis silenced him with a hard look. Don't say it. Louis urged, teeth gritted. He stepped forward, brandishing a flashlight like a lifeline. Beam slicing through the dark, it barely pushed the shadows back, revealing flashes of childhood photos, happy moments now tainted by the looming dread. They reached the landing, a place that once felt safe, filled with sunlight and laughter. Now, it morphed into an abyss, casting heavy doubts upon them all. Charles's breath hitched as he felt the amulet pulse once more, like an insistent heartbeat, urging him to take on the weight of the world. No! Isabel stumbled back, voice trembling. She felt the cold pull of the amulet, the hunger that surged from it, fighting her resolve. This is what Clara wanted, isn't it? To make you its puppet. It's the only way, Charles murmured through gritted teeth. The darkness surged around him, whispering secrets only he could hear. As they approached Adam's room, the door suddenly swung open with a crash, revealing a swirling darkness like ink spilling into the world. A sensation of icy fingers brushed across Charles's neck, and he could almost hear the entity breathing, waiting for his choice. With a sudden clarity, he pushed past the door, stepping into a shadowy void. The room was empty. The bed untouched. Panic ignited a flame inside him. Where is he? Charles growled, his hands clenched, feeling the cold metal of the amulet bite into his palm. Adam! Isabel cried, stepping inside after him. Her voice, tinged with rising hysteria, echoed without response. Paul moved to the window, throwing open the heavy drapes. Light spilled in at an angle, fighting the shadows that clung stubbornly to every corner. We need to think, he urged, eyes wide with terror, but as Charles spun back to them, a low rumbling filled the air. It felt like the walls were shivering, reverberating with a haunting melody, echoing through the hallways a summons. What if he's in the basement? He barked, remembering the last time they ventured into the depths of this house. That's where Clara no. The ghostly laughter echoed, almost relieved, as if the shadows relished the chaos. The air thickened, and pangs of fear gripped his heart. The shadows waited in quiet anticipation, daring him to unlock the answers buried in the past. No, Isabel stomped her foot, regaining her stride. We can't give in. Adam needs us to stay strong. But strength felt fragile in the face of the dark force that loomed over them. Would they survive whatever lay below? Or would they be swallowed by the very darkness Charles felt calling to him from the abyss? Before anyone could respond, a deafening crash echoed from the depths below, rattling the house. The walls trembled as Charles felt the floor shift under his feet. What was that? Paul shouted, eyes wide. A warning, Charles whispered just as the ground erupted beneath them, opening like a mouth ready to consume yet another soul. In that heart-stopping moment, as the terrifying abyss gaped wider, a chilling realization gripped him. The choice to save Adam was no longer just within his power, it rested within the shadows. Hungry for chaos, would he dare to confront whatever terror awaited him? As the darkness swept closer, the question loomed large. Was he strong enough to save his son, or would he be engulfed by a horror beyond comprehension? The floor split open with a violent crack, jagged edges yawning like the maw of a beast. Charles felt a surge of adrenaline as he leaped backward, his heart hammering painfully against his ribs. Get back! He yelled, instinctively pushing Isabel and Paul away from the newly formed chasm. The shadows writhed, hungry tendrils reaching out as if to test the boundaries of their terror. What the hell is happening? Paul shouted, voice barely rising over the cacophony. Focus! Charles barked, feeling the urgency pulse through his veins. The chilling laughter echoed again, a cruel reminder of what they faced. The air was thick with an unnatural energy, and every hair on Charles's body stood on end. Adam's down there. Isabel's eyes gleamed with fear, panic threading her voice as she strained to peer into the depths. We can't just leave him. Trust me, I won't. Charles replied, clenching his fists. He could feel the weight of the amulet around his neck, a cruel anchor tethered to memories he wished he could bury forever. The very thing they had feared was now the call to action, like a beacon illuminating the darkness. Let us find a way down, Lewis said, stepping closer to the chasm. The air felt electric as the shadows pulsed with anticipation. Charles fought against overwhelming doubt. What if Adam wasn't just lost? What if this darkness had already taken him? Wait! He demanded, glancing around the room to gather his thoughts. We need a plan, or we could lose everything. Can't you feel it? Isabel breathed. It knows we're here. It's waiting for us to act. Please, Charles, we can't waste any more time. He hesitated, glancing down into the abyss as whispers brushed against his psyche. All at once, it struck him, the footsteps in the hall, the distant cry of a child, and the nagging feeling of being watched. "I want to just throw my life away," he shouted, defiance rising in his chest. With a deep breath, he stepped closer to the edge. The shadows seemed to swirl, forming shapes that beckon him. Show me where he is," he demanded, voice reverberating with a mix of authority and desperation. The shadows thickened, momentarily coalescing into a figure, a fleeting vision of Adam, crying out for help. It was enough to break Charles's resolve, heart racing at the thought. Then it vanished, leaving only darkness in its wake. "Charles!" Paul's frantic voice yanked him back from the edge. "You can't just suddenly." A loud crash startled everyone. Charles spun around to see the ceiling creaking, plaster falling like snow. They were running out of time. "Down there, there's a passage. We have to find it," Lewis shouted above the chaos, quickly navigating toward the edge of the pit. "You're right." Charles's mind raced. "We need to get down there, now." "Cover me," Lewis replied, already climbing over the edge. "We'll find him together." "I'm coming with you," Isabel yelled, but as she moved, the ground began to shake violently, jagged tendrils of darkness lashing out, snatching at her feet. "Isabel!" Charles screamed, lunging forward. In a heartbeat, the shadows surged, pulling her toward the depths. He felt a jolt in his chest, a horror that screamed of loss and anguish. Without thinking, he reached for her wrist, gripping it tightly. "I want to let go," he yelled, fighting against the force of the shadow, but as he braced himself, a gut-wrenching realization hit him hard. The more he fought, the more the darkness seemed to relish the struggle. The shadows twisted, responding to his fear, feeding off it. It was a cruel game, one where surrender could mean liberation, or doom. As they caught a moment's breath amidst the chaos, the whispers climbed to a feverish pitch, breaking through the barriers of their minds to reveal a truth long hidden. What awaited them in that basement wasn't just their son, it was a test of every fear they had ever faced. Charles looked between the abyss and the terrified faces of the people he loved. "Stay close," he shouted against the howling dark. "Whatever happens, we face it together." But as he prepared to descend into the nightmarish unknown, the shadows deepened, and a chilling voice slithered through the air, promising them secrets they were unprepared to confront. Will Charles and his group uncover the truth they have long been avoiding, or will they be consumed by the darkness that wants to keep them? "Charles!" Isabel gasped, her eyes wide with terror as the shadows clawed at her, each second pulling her deeper toward the gaping void. The darkness was alive, breathing her fear back at her, and it made her feel small, fragile like glass. "Hold on!" Charles yelled, sweat beading on his forehead. He could feel the shadows wrapping around her ankles, cold and malevolent. The more he pulled, the tighter their grip became. "Lewis! We need something." Lewis was already scrambling back up the edge, fear etched across his face. "I can't, this thing is pulling her down. We need to brace her. Get a rope, anything." Paul shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos, urgency boiling beneath each word. "Right." Lewis darted back into the shadows of the main room, throwing his hands around wooden debris, searching for anything that could help. Charles turned his full attention back to Isabel, willing strength into his grip. "I've got you. You're not going anywhere," he promised, heart racing like a drum. But as he held on, dark whispers slipped into his ears, sweetening his fears. "What if you can't save her?" they hissed. "What if you're the one to lose everything?" "Shut up." Charles spat back at the dark. "You can't have her." Suddenly, a serrated piece of metal glinted in Lewis's hands as he charged back. "Here. This will work." He tossed it over, and Charles grabbed it, wedging it into the shadows. "Now!" he cried, jabbing it into the ground as he strained against the force that was pulling Isabel under. Pull! Isabel's screams echoed around them, a desperate plea for help filtering into the cacophony of darkness that now surrounded them. Paul and Louis rushed to grab the improvised lever, hands shaky but resolute. Together, they fought against the pulsating void that demanded their surrender. The metal bit into the earth, and it felt as if time slowed. They strained as one, muscles tensed until they felt ready to snap. The shadows writhed, twisting violently, as if enraged by their defiance. And suddenly, just as quickly as she'd been taken, Isabel lurched forward, yanked back into the light. "Got her!" Paul cried, pulling her into his arms as she collapsed against him, gasping. They all sagged to the ground, panting and trembling. For a moment, the room was silent, dust motes dancing in the eerie light, shadows pushed back to the edges. But then the walls vibrated with a low growl as the darkness twisted violently, and the ceiling creaked above them. The structure groaned, ominously, and the chasm yawned deeper, threatening to consume not just Isabel but all of them. "What just happened?" Isabel whispered, clasping her arms around her knees. "It's still here," Louis murmured, casting a wary glance at the chasm. "More than that," Charles replied, heart sinking as he stood. "It knows us. It knows our fears." Suddenly, the shadows surged upward, coiling like smoke. They thickened and expanded, swirling into shapes, fingers, faces, silhouettes of the past. Charles shuddered, recognizing the torment in their forms. "My mother," he said, eyes wide, realization dawning like a cruel storm. The shadows weren't just angry, they were revealing old wounds. "It's showing us everything we've lost." Images flashed like lightning through the darkness, lost childhoods, missed opportunities, dreams shattered. Each vision crashed over them with the weight of regret. The obsidian tendrils reached out, seeking to ensnare them again. "Don't look. Fight it!" Paul yelled. "Focus!" Charles pinched his eyes shut, picturing Adam's face, the way it lit up with laughter, hope, and life. "We're strong. We can break through this." He shouted against the darkness, but doom clawed at his heart. As the shadows howled louder, a new chorus began, an eerie melody mixed with a lurking terror. It whispered promises of things long lost and things yet to come, some beautiful, others devastating. Charles, Isabel's voice trembled, drawing his attention. What if we can face our memories? What if they hold the key? If we confront our fears? No. Charles shouted, shaking his head violently. The thought filled him with dread. What if it destroys us instead? As the whirlwind of emotions swirled around them, the darkness dared them to step forward. To face the truth. Together, Louis urged, his voice calm as the tempests raged. "We have to take it on." But the shadows shifted eagerly, as if waiting for them to make their move. Would revealing their secret strengthen their resolve, or would confrontation seal their fates? In that moment, they stood at the precipice of choice as the darkness loomed, vibrant and thrilling. And Charles, grasping the remnants of courage, dared to step closer, ready to confront the devilish depths. What terrible truths awaited them in the abyss? With a shaky breath, Charles stepped forward, the chill of the shadows brushing against his skin like icy fingers. The air grew thicker, heavy with the weight of their impending choice. The whispers began to crescendo, swirling around him, each word a dagger aimed at his heart. "You're weak. You can't do it. You will lose everything." "Charles, don't!" Isabel shouted, her voice laced with concern. He turned to her, seeing the fear in her eyes. "I have to face this. We have to face this." He couldn't let the darkness win. He wouldn't. As he moved deeper into the swirling void, the memories washed over him like a relentless tidal wave. First came the image of his father, proud and unyielding. A moment of triumph, a trophy held high, but it twisted into a scene of disappointment, the sharp lines of his father's disappointment cutting deep. "Remember that day?" The shadows whispered, shifting to show Charles as a boy, standing alone on a field as others celebrated. "Stop it!" he yelled, hands clenching into fists. He could feel the darkness responding, feeding on his pain. Is this the boy who could run? A new face emerged, a childhood friend who had turned away in scorn, leaving Charles alone. Panic surged within him, threatening to drown him in the memories he wished to forget. Paul moved behind Charles, grabbing his shoulder with a firm grip. "Stay with us, man. Remember what we're fighting for." His resolve faltered for a heartbeat, but then he felt Isabel's arm on his back warm, comforting. She was beside him, just a heartbeat away, reminding him he wasn't alone. "What if it destroys us?" he shouted back at the shadows. "What if facing them just gives you strength?" As if summoned by his words, the shadows coiled tighter, forming into grotesque shapes a distorted version of his mother, her face frozen in anger, her mouth screaming but no sound escaping. The despair gripped his throat. "Please," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the oppressive darkness. "Let me see the truth." A roar erupted in the void, shattering the silence. The figures closed in around him, a wall of memories prepared to crush him. But something in him snapped, a flame igniting in the depths of despair. No more. With a surge of strength, Charles lunged at the center of the swirling mass, his own voice rising in defiance. "You don't own me. You want to steal my life away." The shadows recoiled for a fraction of a second, and that was all he needed. He pushed through, reaching for something he couldn't quite see. The figures flickered like faulty light bulbs, then suddenly resolved into something clearer, faces of his friends, filled with hope, support, and strength. Inspiration flared, and he could see a path emerging, illuminated in the darkness. Together. Louis' voice rallied them forward, breaking the encroaching gloom. He stepped up beside Charles, followed by Paul and Isabel, all unified against the bond of shadows that had threatened to swallow them whole. The darkness hesitated, shifting ominously as they pressed together, their combined light seeping into the cracks of despair. But that fear, the fear of loss, lingered at the fringes. Faces fluttered by, memories colliding with one another, but now they didn't bring pain. They sparked resilience. "Face them!" Isabel shouted, a fierce determination blaring in her eyes, her chant pushing against the shadows. "We're not afraid." The shadows writhed, trembling before their united front. The ground beneath them trembled, and every breath they took felt electric, charged with an impending confrontation. Would they find solace or sink deeper into despair? As hope surged like a beacon within the chaos, Charles steadied himself, feeling the warmth of his friends beside him. They had a chance to face the very fears that had haunted them, to confront the truths hidden in the darkness. "Are you ready?" he asked, his heart pounding like a war drum, the fear turning into fierce resolve. Each of them nodded, faces lit by a silent promise of support, and then, just as they prepared to break forward into the heart of the darkness, they heard a chilling voice, clear and cutting through the chaos. "Do you really think it's that simple?" The shadows whispered back, 1,000 echoes merged into a single voice, dripping with malice and uncertainty. "What awaits you might be worse than you dare imagine." What dark truth lurked behind that voice, hiding in the shadowy abyss? The ground shook beneath them, a harsh reminder of the power that the shadows wielded. Charles felt adrenaline surge, but doubt nipped at his heels. "What do you mean?" he shouted, his voice cutting through the murk. The shadows writhed, swirling like a storm about to unleash its fury. "Your past is just the beginning," the voice taunted, resonating with an echo that felt personal. "Every step forward is a step backward. Will you truly face what you fear most?" The air turned frigid, and in an instant, the forms around him shifted again. Charles felt a pulse of panic as a scene emerged. Time had flipped backward, revealing his mother's tear-streaked face as she clutched a hastily written letter. "I'm so sorry, Charles. I never wanted this for you." Isabel stepped closer, her hand gripping his arm tightly, anchoring him. "This isn't real. We can't give in," she shouted, her determination shining through the darkness. But Charles could see the flicker of fear in her eyes, and it gnawed at him. What if it was real? What if his mother's words haunted him forever? Louis clenched his fists, anger igniting his usual calm demeanor. Don't let it get to you, man. You're stronger than your demons. His voice rose, rallying the group, pushing back against the suffocating gloom, but the shadows had a way of twisting truths. Images of lost moments flared around them, the friends who had drifted away, the joy that had been snatched, a lifetime of opportunities broken at their feet. You think you can outrun this pain? You're just delaying the inevitable. The tension in the air was thick, oppressive, and every glance exchanged between them held a weight that felt almost suffocating. Charles took a deep breath, the taste of despair bitter on his tongue. What if this is a trap? Maybe the shadows want us to lose our hope? Isabel nodded slowly, eyes narrowing as she scratched a hard line across her brow. Then we have to confront the darkness for everyone who came before us. We aren't alone, and they can't take that away. A deep growl trembled through the shadows, their forms congealing into grotesque figures, baring teeth that glinted menacingly. The voice returned, smooth and taunting. Hope. Such a fragile word, isn't it? There's a reason you all are here to face what you really are. The imagery twisted into something raw and unsettling, and suddenly they were surrounded by a harrowing scene of their fears personified, each one wrapped in a tangible reality that struck to the core of their being. You think you can change? Another echo rang through the air, reverberating in time with their hearts. Let us see how you hold up when faced with your own failures. The figures of Charles' past loomed larger, whispering doubts into his mind. You're a coward. You can't change what's already been written. You'll always end up alone. Anger flared within him like an electric shock, pushing back the despair. No. I refuse to accept that. We refuse. He shouted, stepping forward with newfound determination. Each defiant word pushed against the darkness that threatened to consume them. As if the very act of defiance lit a fire within, the shadows began to writhe erratically, losing their composure. Together! Yelled Paul, a fierce light burning in his eyes. We're all we've got. The group linked together, their hands forming a line of strength, weaving a fabric of resilience that held the weight of their collective pain. The shadows recoiled, hissing angrily, struggling against the light they formed. Charles could feel the hope they had buried deep ignite within. But just as it seemed they might pierce through the darkness, the voice roared, You think you can escape? You have no idea what's truly waiting. And then all at once, the atmosphere shifted. A blinding flash erupted from the center of the shadows, illuminating a passageway they had not seen before, a treacherous path that seemed to promise truth and terror in equal measure. Are we ready for whatever's on the other side? He asked, fear thrumming in his chest as they faced the unknown. The answer hinged on an edge, a sense of impending doom veiled in uncertainty. Would they conquer their darkest fears, or would the depths of that abyss swallow them whole? The truth awaited, but the question loomed larger than life. What darkness waited at the end of the light? Together, they stepped into the blinding light, a torrent of unseen energies bursting around them, pulling each of the four friends to their knees as the world around them began to shift again. It felt like free-falling, weightless and frightening. Charles squeezed his eyes shut, each breath a struggle as tall shadows danced around him, taunting him with his own failures. When he opened them again, they were in an entirely different place, an old, crumbling mansion. The air was thick with dust, the scent of decay wafting through the corridors. Sunlight filtered through broken shutters, illuminating the chaotic flickering shadows that darted along the walls. Where are we? Isabel whispered, glancing around, her voice barely cutting through the oppressive silence. The past, Charles murmured, his heart racing. Memories that were long buried felt too alive, flashing before him like home movies playing on a loop. He felt the pull of nostalgia mixed with bitterness, his childhood home now transformed into a haunting relic of despair. The shadows were back, dancing along the edges of his vision, and he could hear the faint whispers of the lost moments, his mother laughing, the fading sound of a door slamming. "I don't want to be here," he shouted, but his voice echoed without promise. "We have to face it," Paul encouraged, stepping forward, though his bravado seemed tenuous. "This is part of breaking free." But just then, a heavy thud echoed through the mansion, and a pair of eyes glinted in the dim light, a figure lurking behind the remnants of a shattered mirror. Charles felt a chill creep down his spine. "Who's there?" he called out, anticipation gripping his chest. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a woman, gaunt and weary. "You've come back." Her voice was a ghostly whisper, bringing Charles' heart to a halt. "You left me here." "Mom?" His voice cracked, the lump in his throat like a boulder. He felt the shadows press tighter around him, suffocating the air. "I didn't leave you." I thought. Every suppressed thought he fought so hard had now materialized before him, a twisted play of guilt and sorrow. "Thought what?" A tear rolled down her cheek, glistening like an echo of pain and regret. "That you could escape the truth?" The ghosts of their past flickered behind her, faces of heartbreak shimmering in anger. "What do you want?" he snapped, battling the bubbling fear inside. "Everything you have to face," she screamed, erupting in a flurry of shadows, the room closing in on them, distortion setting in like an avalanche of anguish. "Charles, focus!" Isabel called, breaking through the chaos. She moved to his side, her presence tangible against the tide of memories. "We can't let her words control us. We're stronger than this. Together." Louis yelled, his voice harsh and steady. "Remember why we came. We're not prisoners of our past." The shadows howled in protest, their forms shifting violently like storm clouds, feeding off their fear. But in that moment, as resolve began to build within Charles, he saw a glimmer within Isabel's eyes, a spark of hope that brought his racing mind to a halt. "I'm not afraid of you," he shouted, clenching his fists tight, anger bubbling to the surface. "Those fears don't own me anymore." But just as the shadows recoiled, the woman's face twisted into a smirk. "You truly believe that? You think defiance can change what's etched in time?" The room began to warp again, distorting their reality, and Charles could feel panic rising, but a flicker of rage ignited fists around his heart. "No. If you think we'll give in, you're wrong." And, like a light piercing through fog, the moment shifted again, a crack splintering through the room, revealing another unknown dimension. All at once, the atmosphere vibrated with uncertainty, making Charles' heart race. Would they find their way out, or would they be trapped in cycles of pain forever? With shadows looming close, the path ahead shimmered precariously. What awaited them in this new realm? What truths lay buried, waiting to be unearthed? This was only the beginning of their fight. As the air thickened with dread, Charles stood unwavering, light and dark battling in his heart. The shadows writhed around him, taunting with whispers of despair, but a new resolve stirred within him, ignited by the presence of those he loved. "This ends tonight," he declared, eyes blazing. He felt the weight of the amulet at his side, a reminder of choices made and the potential for redemption. Isabel reached for him, fingers brushing his arm, grounding him amidst the chaos. "Remember, we're a team. We need each other," she whispered, breathless with determination. He glimpsed the fierce light in her eyes, a beacon that cut through the shrouded doubts, and it empowered him. "I want to let fear claim us. We're stronger than our past," he shouted, the power of his words resonating through the ghostly mansion. The shadows shifted, momentarily pausing as if surprised by his defiance. Paul and Louis moved closer, forming a solid line beside Charles. "Whatever faces us, we push forward. Together," Paul cried, voice steady and unwavering, reinforcing their unified front. Then, without warning, the woman's form exploded into a chilling laugh, reverberating through the air, a sound infused with malice. "You think you can defeat me? I am the embodiment of your failures. Your worst fears were created by you. No. Charles took a step forward, fists clenched. You don't control me. I choose to rewrite my story. I choose hope. Each heartbeat echoed through the hollow hall, papering over the haunting memories of the past, his mother's sorrow, the friends lost to time, the boy who once stood alone. Taking the lead, he charged toward the heart of the shadows, drawing on the strength of their old memories, laughter shared, dreams forged in spite of adversity. Face us! He yelled, throwing the challenge into the swirling mass that danced angrily before him. The shadows surged in response, morphing into flickering phantoms of his failures, specters of the deceitful whispers that had tried to claim him. Each of his past missteps loomed larger, but with every step he took into the darkness, something shifted inside him. You can't have my family, my son. I refuse to let you win. Inspired by his fervor, Isabel joined him, her voice rising to a crescendo as she echoed his courage. Our love is stronger than your regret. We're no longer trapped by your lies. The energy shifted, becoming electric, crackling between them. With every word exchanged, light began to seep into the darkness, illuminating the shadows that had once choked life from their hearts. Hope unfurled like wings in the night as Paul and Louis joined the chorus, each of their voices reaching a fevered pitch, a unified anthem of resistance. We're here, we're alive, and we choose to fight. As their combined voices merged, the shadows shrieked in agony, writhing and twisting like smoke under fire. The glow from their unity flared, pushing back against the encroaching night, illuminating the room with an ethereal light, but the darkness roared back, furious and potent, clawing at the edges of their resolve. You think this light will save you? It hissed, now speaking with the voice of countless souls consumed by regret. Your redemption is but a fleeting dream. No! Charles shouted, a final rallying cry bursting from his lips. We are the authors of our own fate. We will rewrite our tomorrows and free those you've chained. The air crackled violently as the shadows surged forward, merging into a single, ominous wave. But in their hearts, Charles and his friends felt it, the steady thrum of hope, a reminder of love, sibling ties, and unwavering bonds that remained unbroken. With fierce determination, they took a collective step forward, hands clasped together, creating a chain of unyielding strength. We choose light. They shouted in unison, and a blinding radiance erupted from their joined hands, consuming the shadows in a wave of brilliance. As the light engulfed the darkness, Charles felt the warmth of love envelop him, each heartbeat shaking loose the chains of loss. Memories of laughter, joy, and connection surged forward, overpowering the bitterness of regret. When the darkness shattered like glass, a deafening silence replaced the chaos. Standing amidst the remnants, Charles took a deep breath, inhaling the sweet air of freedom the shadows banished. The mansion felt alive once more, sunlight streamed through windows, illuminating the way ahead. Where's Adam? Isabel asked, voice trembling as tears of relief washed down her cheeks. Let us find him, Charles replied, turning towards the staircase that once felt ominous, now a path to hope. They moved together, united by shared pain but strengthened by their triumph. As they climbed, gloom wafted away, revealing vibrant corridors alive with memories and promising a brighter future, and when they reached the attic door, which had been the residence of fear and despair, Charles pushed it open with trembling hands, revealing a world where shadows no longer held sway. There, bathed in soft, golden sunlight, was Adam, innocent and untouched by the malevolence that had haunted them. Dad? The boy croaked, rubbing his eyes as if awakening from sleep. Charles rushed forward, falling to his knees, clutching his son to his chest. You're safe, he cried, tears flooding his vision. We fought for you. As Adam clung to him, a heaviness lifted. The house felt warm, pulsing with a familiar heartbeat, a sign of renewal. One battle fought, but not forgotten, a lesson learned in the face of darkness. Finally free of the abyss, the family stood intact, facing a future unclouded by fear. Together, the shadows retreated into whispers, the echoes of past trials fading under the brilliance of new beginnings. Charles vowed in the echo of that tender moment never to let the darkness return. It was time to embrace their new world, their fresh start. Each of them were stewards of hope, lighting the way forward. Now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, letting your voice be heard, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Your insights make this community thrive. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and join in the adventure.